Okay, guys, so this is my Medusa figure. She is a mixed media piece. This is a resin up here. It's from a resin octopus that didn't turn out. And as soon as I saw it, I knew it was going to be her head. The weird thing is that it had some of this orange powder because I was working on some Halloween pieces. And I actually went to the Casa thrift store, and Casa is a local shelter for women of domestic abuse. And this thrift store supports that shelter. And they had, and I've been looking, man, there are none of these around that I could find. They had one Harlequin pin. And so I ended up buying it, which is perfect because that money goes back to supporting women of domestic abuse, which ties in nicely to the Medusa figure. But I had to take apart the pin to get the mask out, but it had the orange. I was just like, it was totally meant to be. The hair is preserved moss. I wanted this piece to be a little more sexualized because in the story, Medusa is one of three sisters called the Gorgons, and she is the only one who is mortal. And she is a worshiper of Athena, but the problem is that she's drop dead gorgeous, and she catches the eye of Poseidon, who essays her, and out of revenge, Athena cannot attack Poseidon, he's a fellow god, but she can go after Medusa as a mortal. So Medusa is transformed into a monster. So I wanted the body to be somewhat sexualized here. And I actually have, it took me a little while, I have only found one of these because they're much harder to find these days. But this is a labradorite carving that is basically just the female torso. So there's no head, no arms, but you have the chest and the rear. And I was like, well, you just can't get more sexualized than that, right? With these broad hips. And I love the fact that this particular piece, and again, it's just like it was meant to be. It had this scaling on it like this. And then if you look very carefully, there is a flash, and I'm sad to say that the camera doesn't pick it up. There's a little bit of orange in that flash as well. I thought it would be kind of a nice little twist because Medusa ties into the idea of a woman's gaze bewitching a man, turning him literally hard. So again, that sexual tie-in. And of course here Medusa turns men into stone, but adding that stone element, right, in her own sexuality with this piece. The rest of the piece is my wrapped wire. It was actually a bit more of a challenge to do this because the labradorite is very heavy. This is a pretty substantial, I'll have to weigh how much she weighs, but it's a very substantial piece. So getting that tail to balance out, and of course getting that movement in there. And I wanted this to be a little bit thicker, and I did want the piece to be a little bit awkward in the sense that the proportions are very different. I wanted the head to be exaggerated. And in fact, this piece is presenting her head to us because essentially, through no fault of her own, she is turned into a monster. She is cursed through this feminine rage, right, to destroy men who come to kill her, right? I mean, this is just a bloody, gory story. And at the end, she herself is killed by the hero Perseus, and her head is used to destroy another monster. After that, her head is given back to Athena, who attaches it to her breastplate or her shield, and essentially it becomes known as something like the Aegeus. My accent is awful, and it is meant to strike fear into the hearts of the enemy, because of course Athena is also a goddess of like military strategy as well as wisdom. So there is a cartoonized version of her head that also becomes more popularized. It is put above doorways or sometimes on pottery, and it wards off evil eyes, evil spirits, that type of thing. And it's almost like the Kali face, right, with the exaggerated mouth, the fangs, the tongue sticking out, and the bulging eyes, because it's a corpse, right? So the whole thing with Medusa is just so tragic. And of course, the other ties with her and her mythology. Some people speculate that she might have been a degraded earth goddess with the association of serpents representing kind of rebirth. Women are the the progenitors, right? We bring in life, and in bringing in life, we also subject those we bring into death, right? So she might be a degraded death goddess. She is associated with poison as well, venomous breath, venomous blood. And in fact, she does give birth. When Perseus takes her head from her severed neck, springs the winged horse Pegasus, who becomes the god of inspiration. And I think his name is Chrysor. I'll have to look it up again, but he is a phenomenal warrior. Now, the horse thing may seem a little bit weird, the winged horse element, but remember that Poseidon is not only the god of the sea, he is the holder of the land, and he is the god of horses. So again, the idea that Medusa might have been the death element of an earth goddess, that she might have been an earth goddess that was devolved over time into this kind of serpentine monster. And the other idea is that her snake hair might actually be a tie-in. And I just read this perhaps in the last month or two, but the snake hair might actually be a tie-in to exotic hairstyles. Like somebody coming in from Africa that might have had braids or a different type of hairstyle than the Greeks were used to. And in Africa, women oftentimes, not always, but would have a stronger place in society, sometimes even becoming warriors or priestesses or very high-ranking members of society. So it would be kind of interesting if not only was there a tie-in to these African warrior women, but maybe even the Amazons. So anyway, I like this one, which means nobody else out there will but me. But I thought she turned out pretty well. I am pleased with it. She has passed the mother test as well, so that's where we are.